you.
Okay. It feels like
Okay, I know. I'm like, where are we going?
Morning.
Bonjour.
Please don't move. And
Hi.
in the meantime,
Okay, right in the middle. Just facing you, please.
Kate, please look down. Look down, Kate. Look down.
Just here for me.
Kate, look down.
Just here for me.
Kate, look down. Right to the middle. Right to the middle. Look down, please, Kate. Look down. Right to the middle. Look down, please, Kate. Kate, please look down.
When do we start?
Okay, we're done. Okay. Thank you.
I was like, where'd they go?
one more thing. No photos, no video will be allowed.
Thank you very much.
Thank
No
you.
photos, no videos. Thank you.
Hi. We're just going to have a moment of silence. Yes.
All right, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm so excited to be here with both of you.
Us as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Congrats on your premiere yesterday. How was it seeing it with an audience in the theater?
Yes, we had a film we co-produced with Scarlet Pictures, The New Boy, which is from one of our favourite directors of all time, but wonderful Australian Indigenous director, Warwick Thornton. And he won the Camera d'Or, was it 15 years ago, for his first feature, Samson and Delilah. So to be returning to that quadrant of the festival, for him and for all of us in his wake, was really profound, and I think it screened really well. So we're very proud of the film, and it was a great, platform here.
Now, I want to talk more about New Boy, but first, let's talk about how the two of you came together as producing partners. I know that you met on Mrs. America, is that correct?
We did. We met on Mrs. America. We joined forces, Cate and Andrew, about 3 years ago. And 3 is our lucky number. We have 3 films coming out this year, I guess. We had Shada at Sundance, New Boy here, and Fingernails upcoming with Apple in the fall. And I think we just gravitated towards each other because we were so passionate about filmmakers, and we had so many amazing filmmakers work on that show with us. And when we were finishing, we decided to partner up.
Yeah, the conversation was great. I mean, that's the thing, is everyone talks, even though we're very director-driven as a company, and we've both been in our separate experiences, and I have been as an actor, and also as a producer. Filmmaking is a conversation. So, being in dialogue with Andrew, of course, as a, work partner and life partner, but also with Coco was really invigorating, because it makes you think in a different way. When you ask each other, maybe the questions that you hadn't thought of, or they challenge your assumptions or your way of working. It keeps things sort of robust, and it's good to have that frisson, and that definitely happened with Mrs. America. There were some directors that Coco threw into the mix who were really, really exciting, Laure and Janixa. So that was really exciting. So we had a simpatico taste, and it was great to allow that to evolve.
Yeah, and now I think we've built a company, and we're building a company that's really about supporting those voices, supporting those filmmakers, and really when we come onto a project as producers, we're there to support the vision 100%. And that's why we joined forces.
Now, Coco, can you talk about how you got your start as a producer?
I've worn many, many hats, and which I think is a good thing for a producer. I worked for many years with Quentin Tarantino, which I think informed the way that I work with filmmakers. And I've been like a publicist, I've been a producer. I raised $3.1 million on the internet for Zach Braff's film 10 years ago. So I think that it's all about finding the ways to get things done, finding the ways to get things made, and that's been, my career from the beginning to now.
And Cate, at what point did you have this interest in producing, and why did you want to explore that side of the business?
Well, I've always been interested in that wonderful American phrase that you're always using, the process from soup to nuts. So it's not just everyone talks about, why did you choose the role? And for me, it's never been the role. It's always been about who you're in conversation with, and I'm as interested in the development process as I am in the process of shooting it, and then I'm really interested in the post process right through to how distribution and marketing. And Andrew and I ran the de facto National Theatre Company in Australia we did it for almost 10 years, and I did it for 6. And it was really great to be producing the work of emerging performing artists as well as mid-career and late-career artists, and placing them in dialogue with one another. And so this just feels an extension for me of my work as an actor. And just to your point too, I think both Andrew and Coco and I we understand how films get made. We're not prepared to pick up the gear and move it around. And people usually associate that kind of lugging with women. We're prepared to do the jobs big and small in an egoless kind of way. And that's the way we make films in Australia. And it was really great to discuss, with Coco, to realize that that's exactly the way you do. As a producer, you are kind of have to be a publicist sometimes. You do have to be, a crew member.
You get people coffee.
Yeah, you do. You do a lot of coffee, and also you need to know what the post process needs. And I think we understand hands-on all of those things in a creative way. So I think it's getting the money. Of course, none of us would be here if that wasn't. It's a big, enormous part of the job. But I think what often gets lost in the art of producing is that creative dialogue with the people who are at the center of the process. And, I think we're here to protect that part.
Absolutely.
Not in a sacred way, but ask, the creative important questions, but also support that creative vision. So that just feels, for me, like an extension of my work as an actor.
And Coco, can you talk about working with Cate, obviously with so much experience in this industry, how that's an asset to her work as a producer?
Well, I mean, there's the process, like Cate's saying, there's the process of making the film, and that can be a sacred process, in the best case scenario. And then there's the process of everything after. And I mean,
which can be a bun fight.
Yeah, exactly. And Cate, you've been doing this for so long, and you've seen that process through in so many different ways. I've always found Cate to be incredibly smart in the way that we're talking about marketing a film, and beyond her creative insights. And I noticed when we were doing Mrs. America, we were in the post process, and we were working on notes together. It's just you are so you're so able to get to the heart of what each character needs and what they're trying to say in the most minute ways and in the largest ways. And so it's so interesting for me as a producer working with you as an actor, because that's not the natural lens that I come at things from. So I've learned so much. So there's kind of twofold. There's the creative process, and then there's the experience of bringing something out and getting the largest platform for something and supporting the piece of work you've all made together. And so it's just been wonderful to do that together over the past few years.
Now, in New Boy, you obviously have a role in that film, but I know that most of the slate at Dirty Films, you do not. You're behind the camera. So when do you choose to act in one of your projects or not?
I'm always trying to get out of acting. I've been trying to stop acting my entire professional life. And I remember an Australian film director saying to me really early on in my career that I had to stop taking small roles. And I said, why? I said, that was the most interesting role. And I didn't want to play the lead. I wanted that one because I can experiment with it, and I really want to be in dialogue with those actors and that cinematographer and that director on that set and that location. And so the idea of, I remember when Andrew and I were running the Sydney Theatre Company, when I directed a show or it was a show that we produced, large or small, on opening night, when I wished the actors the best of luck and they walked onto the stage and I went into the auditorium, I had this profound relief, in a way. But then what I did realize that the nerves are exactly the same. Like, it's more nerve-wracking if you've directed a show, sitting there and knowing that you've got no control over what's going to happen in the evening. But I think for me, I just said it earlier, it's about the conversation. And sometimes that conversation involves me being in front of the lens, and sometimes it's, back behind, being a little bit too bossy sometimes, from behind. Because the facilitation is equally as creative.
Now, whoever wants to answer this, can you talk about the name, Dirty Films? Where did that come from?
Well, I suppose like the company, it's evolved. It's been in Andrew's and my life for a long time. When he was a freelance editor in Australia, when they were cleaning the negative for the, they used to mark it up with like a China pencil, and they had to clean it and run it through the solution so that they could screen the rushes. And he and the other editors used to have a joke that they don't screen dirty films, they clean them. So it was about the editing process, but it's evolved. We kept it because it's kind of cheeky. I mean, we've got some really inappropriate emails because of our name. But maybe we might evolve. Who knows? Who knows?
Always keep our options open.
Keep your options. It's a very lucrative industry, apparently. But it's evolved, I think, because we're very interested in process. And so we like the idea. We don't mind getting our hands dirty. We're interested in the complicated, often messy process of making something. That it doesn't. We're not results driven. We're not trying to end game before we've got into the weeds, so to speak.
We want our fingerprints.
Many metaphors.
We want our fingerprints on that film.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think. And when I joined Cate and Andrew, we talked about the name. We were like, is it new? And for me, I was like, I love this, and I love the tangibleness of the name, that it's really about something that you can hold in your hand. And I've done more work on film than I actually have on digital because of working with Quentin and in Django Unchained. My office was surrounded by film racks, so I grew up in that environment too. So it meant something to me, and it was nice for those kind of ideas to come together.
Now, can you talk about what sorts of projects you were looking for at Dirty Films?
Well, for me, I'm a little bit wary of mission statements. Saying we make this type of cinema. I think our taste is really eclectic, and I think in the end, I think the types of films one is interested in, and the brand of a company evolves over time. And I think that's what I love about working with Coco and with Andrew, is that we never discount any conversation because you never know where it's going to lead you. But I mean, I think our slate currently, I suppose, is evidence of what we're interested in.
Yeah, I mean, we're working with a lot of international filmmakers. We're working with a lot of female filmmakers. But I think that all you have, obviously you have your ability and that can be learned, but your taste is something that evolves over time, that is wholly your own. And we've been so lucky, the three of us. Anytime someone's like, hey, I'm thinking about this thing, we were like, yes. I mean, there's never been a situation where somebody said, oh, I'm not sure. So we've just been so aligned on our taste, and it is eclectic. It is, sometimes I feel like we're like, is this the hardest thing we could possibly do? Like, let's jump into that. But yeah, it's really writer, director, filmmaker driven primarily, and we're just excited. And all levels, emerging filmmakers, established filmmakers, we're kind of working in both those spheres right now.
But also we were involved in a really interesting VR project that Coco found with a group called Marshmallow Feast.
Marshmallow Laser Feast.
Laser Feast. And it was called Evolver, about going inside the body into the process of breathing. And they were using techniques that they'd used for people with PTSD. And so it was a really fascinating VR installation that I never would have imagined being involved with, but it was absolutely fascinating. It was at the Tribeca Film Festival.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll tour.
Yeah, Terrence Malick executive produced it with us, and Ed Pressman, the late Ed Pressman. And it was just one of those, and it will tour, I hope. And Cate graciously leads you into the experience by reading some poetry. It's really fantastic. So we're interested in all these different areas. It's certainly not fitting into a box.
Because I think too, it's and Andrew and I really learnt this in the theatre, and something that can be frustrating sometimes when you're working on a film project, is that sometimes things happen incredibly quickly, and so you need to be able to jump fast and move fast, and you don't want to arrest the natural momentum of a project. And then sometimes some projects can take a decade to realise. So, you know, it was great to work on that Marshmallow Laser Feast, you know, installation, because it happened super, super quickly. But say something like New Boy, it's been in Warwick Thornton's bottom drawer for, you know, almost 18 years. But then when he pulled it out, we knew it had been percolating for a long time, so we needed to act quickly. So before we lost him again. So it just, you have to be alive to those different rhythms and the different scale too, I think.
Now on Mrs. America, I know that it was mostly female directors. I never like to assume anything, but I imagine that was a very specific effort, that you wanted to have women direct those episodes. Can you speak a bit about that?
Well, we thought it was going to be, we just sort of were around the table one day. I mean, look, let's just make a list. Let's make our best efforts. And without drawing breath, we suddenly had a list of 70 women who were all completely qualified, capable, and inspirational. And then it became, it's like, oh, God, who's available? We've only got 8 episodes. You know, how do we know 9 episodes? Well, it was 8 at the beginning, and then it became 9.
I think it was 6, and then it was 8, and then it was 9.
Yeah, yes, bigger. So I think that was so exciting. Just a bunch of women making this show, going, let's make our best efforts, and then realizing just how easy it was and how lazy it is, how lazy the industry has been, and neglectful, you know, to its detriment. You know, there was a profound malaise and a level of homogeneity to the work, because the people behind the lens who were making the work were too homogenous, you know. And so when you get a diverse perspective, and I'm not just talking about gender and sexual orientation and cultural diversity and racial diversity. I'm talking about generational diversity. And so I think then the work becomes really exciting, and I think that's what made Mrs. America what it was.
And it carried through to the crew as well. Our DP, one of our DPs is Jessica Ligagne, amazing, at the time, 31 French-Canadian DP. She works with Ben Stiller. She shoots Severance. She's incredible.
Yeah, she's amazing.
And we made a rule, basically, for every single member of the crew that for every position, you must interview a woman and you must interview a person of color. And just pushing people towards that goal brought out all these very qualified people that they just hadn't met before, hadn't been pushed towards finding. So our crew was incredible. And lots of women behind the camera as well, not just the directors.
Is that for all your projects, that you interview a woman and a person of color?
It's something we
I think it's important to.
Yes.
But it's also, it's just, I mean, it's, why not? I mean,
Yes,
you know,
of course.
it's we shouldn't even be having this conversation.
Right.
I'm not telling you off.
No, exactly. I'm saying we shouldn't have to be having it, and yet we do, because if not, then it's not happening.
No, and I look forward to the day when we don't even need to have interviews about women in cinema. Where it's a non-issue.
Right.
But we've both had experiences where we've walked on set and done the head count, and you wonder why you sort of slightly feel alienated and annoyed some days is because you realise you get onto the block through. And you do the head count, and I realised not only am I the only woman in the cast here for the block through, there are 62 men, and yep, I'm the only woman. And so you go, this ratio is bad, and you go, okay, I'll do it tomorrow. Okay, 37 men, 3 women. No, not good enough. And so it's not even like the ratio is 7 to 5. Right. It's really disproportionate, and it means that you're always laughing at the same jokes. You're always, it's like, and so the hour. I mean, I do have a really good sense of humor, but it's like let's change it up. Yeah.
Can you talk about, Cate, the changes that you've seen for women in this business since the time that you started out?
I think it's top of mind. I think diversity is top of mind, and I think it's in a way that you can feel sometimes, if I'm honest, you can feel sometimes people going, okay, we're having the diversity conversation. That's good. That means we're having it a lot, and unfortunately we need to keep having it, until all of the rooms and at all levels of the process of making cultural product, for want of a better phrase, until it just doesn't. Until the product is as diverse as it should be. But I've noticed enormous changes. Yeah, definitely. And I feel that that there's a lot more from when I started off as an actress in the film industry. There was a sense of, and to be frank, it did come from the media more than it came from the women that I encountered on set, that you were competitors, you weren't collaborators, and we are natural collaborators, and so I've noticed that women have really got each other's backs.
Yes.
And that the women who have power to elevate the wage, to say we're going to have favoured nations on this set in terms of all of the sort of perks, although the types of films that we tend to have, there are no perks, but to make sure that there's that the women who maybe are not in that position to argue their corner, you argue it for them and with them.
Right.
And empower them to have that voice on set.
Now, if you look at the statistics, it's still staggering. When you look at women versus men behind the camera in executive positions, there are not that many female directors who are getting these big budget films. Cate, are you ever interested in directing?
I get asked a lot. Yeah, I do get asked a lot. But for me, there's so many things that I find enjoyable in the process of making a film, and so many directors that I yet want to work with as an actor and as a producer. And it takes a long time. I'm slow as an actor. I mean, I'm triply slow as a director. There's a project that I'm we're very keen on. That we're discussing. So hopefully that will come to fruition. But it's about making the time, and knowing intimately how long it takes through development, through all of those processes, right through to being there, at every event like this for the movie. And I also have 4 children and a garden that I'm, which I don't want the plants to die.
The gardening takes a while.
It does, yeah.
You have to tend to it.
But I mean, you do learn, it's a cliche, but you do learn patience, which is something I need to learn. And you learn that from gardening.
Yes.
I've killed a lot of cauliflower.
Coco, can you speak a bit about your upcoming slate? You mentioned those 3 films.
The 3 films are coming out this year, all in the fall. I feel like that's a good sign.
Yeah, it was a busy year.
It was a busy year. We have a film with Ben Stiller that Cate and Ben are going to act in together as well, called The Champions.
And he's directing.
What else have we announced?
Yeah, well, no, I don't know if we can announce
break some news here.
Yeah.
We have a very large slate, to be honest with you. We've probably got 15 films in development. We have a film with Emma Corrin that we're going to shoot this fall. And we have
I don't know if we
A
can
lot
talk
more
about
next year that we're going to tell you about soon.
Yeah.
We'll stay tuned.
Yeah.
Now, what do you both think about the state of the industry? Because right now, there's more content than ever, which is a positive because there's so much room for new voices. But is it hard to stand out when there's so many places to look and so much content to consume?
Yeah, but it's also, there's a lot of fear around too. So you might be able to get some money to make something, but then you've got to say, is that the right partner? Are they going to lose their nerve? And so sometimes you sort of think, oh, well, you know, it's probably, you hate me for saying this, but it's probably good to take a little bit less money, but to have a really brave partner to you know, collaborators to make the thing. I think there's a lot being made, but then there's also a lot that's being
I think things
not
are.
so well
I think it's
made.
hard to find things. I think that there's a lot of noise. When I, as a film, as an audience, I'm finding more films from international auteurs, international filmmakers, female filmmakers that are so exciting, and more. I think today more than ever there is an emphasis on getting those films made, which is very, very exciting to us. But it's about getting them seen, you know, and I think that's the big challenge that we're facing.
And how they're seen.
And how they're seen, and how they're kind of contextualized. And obviously, seeing a movie in a movie theater is an incredible experience. It's been through, we've had a couple rough years, but in terms of the filmmaking and the interest in interesting points of view, new points of view, I think it's more exciting than ever.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of movie theaters, what is doing well right now is big franchise films, superhero films,
Are they?
sequels. They are. They are. Yes.
That's good.
Yes. What do you think about that? Do you think that Hollywood needs to take more chances on fresh ideas and new ideas?
I don't know. I know you live in LA. I don't know what Hollywood means. I actually don't know what Hollywood means. I think Hollywood is I'm going to sound like a T-shirt slogan. It's a state of mind, you know. And I think you can find a version of Hollywood thinking in Australia or in France, you know, in Germany. It's I think a healthy industry is one that is diverse in scale, you know. And I think often we butt up or try and compare, and once again the media does this. You know, it's like apples and oranges. How can you possibly compare the ambitions and the resources of a film that's made for $250 million and one that's made for 1.5? You know, and the production design and the level of inventiveness in the costumes and the resources that they did or didn't have. You know, like I think a healthy industry gives a platform and access for an audience to that entire cornucopia of cinematic experience. And I, for one, as an actor, have enjoyed being in those films of different scales. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think if you're talking about at the box office, you're also got to look at the amount of screens that those things are on.
Right.
You know, so it's, for example, this film I made with Todd Field last year. He was very particular about how it was released. So it was only released when it first came out in the States on 4 screens, and people were saying, "Oh, you look at the box office numbers; it didn't do very well." It's like it was on 4 screens. Those numbers were phenomenal, phenomenal. It wasn't on, didn't go wide, it didn't even start on 1,000 screens.
Right.
So you just got to you've got to do the math on that stuff and not be quick to judge. And sometimes it's good to start in a niche way, you know. So it's really important to look at how those things are they doing well?
Right.
You know, are those big so-called blockbusters really the blockbusters? You know, but you know, I love going to see Julia Roberts and George Clooney. You know, I do. I love them both.
Who doesn't?
Who doesn't?
Who doesn't? Do you think, is it harder to get financing for a project as a woman?
I'm sure it is. Undoubtedly.
It's hard to get paid as an actress, so I guess it is.
Yeah, undoubtedly. I mean, we're not there yet.
Yeah.
You know, we make films for an audience. We'd love for our industry to look like our audience, and we're not there yet. But I think we are making progress.
But I think transparency is really important.
Yes.
I mean, we always talk about money like we shouldn't be talking about money. But why don't we talk about money? We talk about we open out all the other aspects of the process that we're expected to. I think the more transparent all of that stuff is, the more you can work out how the money is flowing and where it needs to flow and where it's not flowing yet, you know.
Do we have time for a few audience questions? Yes? Okay. I believe there's a mic over here.
Hello. Okay. A question to Cate Blanchett. Your roles, the recent roles, portray very strong women, the women of Tar, and also this movie also. The character is very strong, but also very weak. Maybe can you talk about how do you design this change of tone between a very strong woman who can reach every single goal, but has also fragility inside?
I think you're speaking to complex characters, which I've always been drawn to, or, you know, early on in my career when there weren't opportunities and you had to make an opportunity out of what was traditionally called a girlfriend role. You try and play against the banality or the simplicity of the character on the page. But when Todd Field has written a character like that, when you know that he is always going to put the camera in the right position to capture the nuances that you're trying to inflect the character with, then you're in really good hands. I mean, that character was on the page. You really didn't need to change a syllable. I just had to try and rise to that level of complexity, but it was there. And then, of course, when you're working opposite Nina Hoss, you know, I mean, the queen of complex nuance and fascinating female characters. But it was, you know, sometimes a character is written like that on the page, but the filmmaker doesn't trust it. You know, but that wasn't the case with Todd. So that was him if she was nuanced in any way.
Your performance was phenomenal.
Oh, thank you.
It was
Thank you.
incredible. I believe we have time for one more question. Over here.
Okay, thank you. Hi, my name is Dr. Stacy Smith. I'm the founder of the Annenberg Inclusion Initiative. Kate, thank you for the shout out in
Thank
Tar.
you. Thank you.
Everything
That was Todd, actually. He wrote the script.
It doesn't matter, it came through you. But thank you, and I will thank Todd too. Everything that you were articulating about the industry, on point, finances, market size, you know, distribution, density of theaters or territories, all on point. My question is far more, I just think, basic. Are there a few filmmakers' voices? You talked about their visions, but specific filmmakers that you're really excited to work with in the future, maybe not having a project attached, but people? And Coco, for you in particular, are you interested in directing? Because you've been in a producerial role in all these other lanes. Might directing come your way?
I would love to direct. We have discussed it. We have discussed it, yes. I mean, we're working with so many amazing filmmakers.
Lucretia Martel for me. Lucretia Martel.
Yeah, we loved working with Janixa Bravo on Mrs. America. We'd love
Celine
to
Sciamma.
continue our work with Janixa. Antonetta, who directed an amazing Croatian film that won the Camera d'Or here a couple years ago, called Marina. And we, you know, some men too. Yeah, Jenny Soon, who we're making a film with in Hong Kong. So we've absolutely. That is most of our conversation, is who we're excited about.
Yeah. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Elizabeth.